doornails.
Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Boy, howdy, it's another podcast. It's just me and Jason this time around, mainly because Silver apparently has 2 tests she has to study for and cares about her academic career like a loser.
Boy, am I
And
glad
as
I'm
always-
not in high school or in school anymore, I should say.
Yeah, well, and always Ross probably stumbles in late like a champ usually does. That being said, the only important people are here. I wonder if I can let's see if I could change this.
I bet you say all the hosts.
Ooh, I'm going to change that. I'm going to move us. No, that's kind of weird because we'll have news and we'll be in the way. I'm working on revamping the structure of what the podcast looks like. We'll be in the corner for now. But the only valuable people in the world, the only ones that matter, the narcissists are here. The narcissist. And it's me and Jason. Jason, how are things?
Not bad. So I put The Lord of the Rings on hold for a bit because a book that I'd put on hold came in from the library. So got to read that, got to take it back, kind of thing. And then I've been watching. I know I've discussed this with you, and we've discussed this on the channel. I like old movies, so a while back, my wife got me some Laurel and Hardy movies, and I'm finally getting around to watching them. I've watched almost all of them. There's one more left that I haven't watched yet. It's called Utopia. It's kind of interesting because most of they had 2 feature films in the set. One was Flying Deuces. Laurel and Hardy are in France, and Hardy gets dumped, and so he decides to join the French Foreign Legion, as you do, to forget.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up dying and being reincarnated as a horse. But for the most part, most of the films and things that are on the set are from when they did silent stuff. So there's only like 3 or 4 total that have them speaking in the movie. So it's really been interesting to see kind of some of the stuff they used to do with film back in the day when all they did was silent. So
Before we got to the talkies.
Yeah. I one of the things that my son came and was watching one of the movies over my shoulder because I was watching it on a tablet, and he was like kind of confused, and I said, basically there was no dialogue in these movies. They would sometimes show cards that might say something, but when you went to the theater, you would go in and there was a dude that was sitting there playing the piano through the whole thing.
Well, through musical cues
job.
to try and help the song along. I mean, it's funny to talk about really old forms of entertainment like this because I feel like I have a broken perspective on what means to be old because I spent a lot of time reading and researching history. That's my degree is in history.
Yeah.
And so it's like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
people talk about old, in my mind, you're going like hundreds of years ago. Whereas if
Yeah,
it was
you're
like 80 years ago, that's not really old as far as I'm concerned. And though most people would be like, oh, that's really old. It's like, in terms of history, that's nothing. That's like yesterday.
My wife sometimes when she gets really tired, she'll say, "Oh, I feel so old," and I look at her and say, "There's no way I can feel old." I knew my great grandfather. I was one of the pallbearers at his funeral. The dude was over 100 years old when he finally passed away. And it's like that guy was old. To me, it's like, yeah, I'm getting older, but I'm nowhere near where he was. So I don't.
Literally,
I
the internet existed in my timeline. Like I was here before
Right.
internet.
Right.
The car existed before my grandmother. Like my grandmother was alive when
Exactly.
there wasn't really planes. So it's
Right.
like when people talk about it's like, oh, that's old. It's like you have no idea. History moves so stinking fast that it's impossible.
exactly.
Like when I research old, it's like, oh, the medieval ages and this king
Back
or
to-
whatever. Yeah,
back
relatively
to
speaking,
Babylon and the first ever system of writing, and yeah.
Hammurabi's code or something.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's like me and you went to Japan on vacation once, and we visited
Yeah.
temples that are like
That are older than the US.
3 or 4 times older than America. Like buildings that are 3 or 4 times older than America. Like it's not that much time. And I know time is relative to most people. If
Very
you spend if your life is 5 years, then like existence has only existed for 5 years. But if you spend any
Right.
time researching history, you're like, so much has happened. Oh boy, I'm going to sneeze and I don't want to. So much has happened with you having nothing to do with it. Like so much has happened
Right.
before you that it would blow your mind. People have such a narrow view of time where it's like time exists around my sort of me. Like time began with me and it'll end with me.
Well,
and nothing.
it's
Anything
like you
before it is just nothing in ancient.
It's like you were saying about that perception. The thing is that before you were born, there was no way you could perceive time the way you do now. And so technically, for you, time didn't exist before your birth. And after you die, your time here on Earth, that's it. And so yeah, it does lend itself to a very narcissistic view of time.
Oh yeah.
Like
I don't
anything
tend
outside of
to.
me didn't exist.
Well, not to be. It's like that cliche fuddy-duddy. As you get older, you're like, I don't get the modern music, but it's like, but back in the day when you would ride to work, or not even just to work, when you go to school or something, you listen to stuff on the radio, you would watch MTV or something to see the new music or whatever. Now it's
Right.
like you have to be plugged into social media to see what's current. And I have no idea what's current because I don't care what people are saying on social media. So my access to music tends to revolve around like stuff that like I'll be exposed to new music that I'll get into and I'll listen to a lot of that is like 120 years old. And to me, it's new because I've never heard it before. It's like
Right.
weird tin pot music during the Great Depression, singing about like everything's awful and I'm going to kill a cop or something. Like that's the weird sort of music you would get at that time. And it's fun
Right.
and it's interesting and you get a little perspective of what people are thinking and feeling at that time. And then I listened to something that's fairly new when I was working up on campus. It was a very new song. And I was really into it because it felt scratchy and garage bandy. I can't remember what it was. And I'm listening to the song and I gave some kid a ride home and he's like, this song's old. This is like a year old. That's like a year is old to you.
That's not
like
old.
like somehow it's outside of the perspective of your like oh, this is so 6 months ago. It's like, oh, screw you, kid. And it's
So,
not even that I
just
cared
on
it
this-
was current. It was just that
Right.
it's like, well, you shouldn't listen to it. It's now old. It's like, what do you
It's
mean I
now
shouldn't
old?
listen to it?
Yeah. Just kind of on that same vein. So I remember growing up, and there was an oldies station on the radio, and I'm trying to remember exactly what they used to say when they would break for the station identification. It was like something about, I think it may have been the 50s and the hits of the 50s and 60s or something of that nature. It may have been 60s and 70s. I'm not entirely sure. Right.
Keep talking
now.
1 sec. Oh,
But-
I'm gonna step away for 1 sec. Keep talking.
Yeah. So anyway, I sometimes will listen to that station when I go back to visit my mom, but now it's playing the 80s and 90s. So it's playing the stuff that was on the radio when I was a kid, which is really weird now because it's like this is old, but this isn't oldies. Oldies is like the stuff I grew up listening to, and I realized that for like the current generation, technically that is oldies because it's about that same time reference with the times that I remember, the songs that I remember that were playing on the oldies station. So I get that the window has moved and it's now 80s and 90s, but it seems interesting to me that they've moved it to being the greatest hits of the 80s and 90s rather than just the greatest hits of whatever we decide to play kind of thing. And they're still playing the Beatles. They no longer play the Beatles on that station anymore. They no longer play that stuff that I remember growing up with. The trying to remember who else was on that station. I remember the
I don't
Beatles.
know. I'm not a Beatles guy.
No, I get it. There, Elvis is another one that they would play. The thing is that I think my parents listened to the oldies station more than I did.
Well,
it was
it's
one of those
just
things where I knew
funny.
what was going on in the
Oldies used to
background.
be like 1950s, 60s. Like you're
exactly.
talking like the Big Bopper or Buddy Holly or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's like they're defining oldies as in the 80s or even the 90s.
It's
And
like
it's like,
Nirvana is now an
Yeah.
oldies, and Roxette is now oldies, and all these things that I grew up with, and it's like that just really seems weird to me because it's like, no,
well, obviously
oldies is
our
the stuff that
perspective is different because of our age
Yeah.
difference. It's just funny for people, for me looking back and seeing like my grandpa humming a tune from like 60 years ago. And then now everybody's like, oh yeah, AC/DC, that band, almost like they're viewing AC/DC like Elvis.
right.
And it's like, I mean, they were old when I was young, but good Lord, it was just, well, and I've found something since you brought up movies. I found something that's kind of funny with our current crop of film is we've hit this funny curve when it comes to the film quality, because we're now getting to the point where movies that were new when I was a child, that people are going to look back at and be like, oh, these are before my time, were filmed with good enough film that it's going to be harder and harder to tell quality of movie as time goes on. It's like when I used to think old films, it's like you could tell grain quality from like a movie from the 70s or 60s. I mean, black and white or whatever. Now people are like, oh, this old film from the 90s, and like it looks really good, and it's really hard to, like, you can watch a film with somebody almost like they were that young yesterday, and was not that long ago.
The thing is that they've gotten better at storing old film. Old film, one of the things that used to happen is it would degrade pretty fast, and so that's one of the reasons why we have lost
or whatever.
Oh yeah. We have lost so many old films. I was actually because I was watching the old Laurel and Hardy stuff. I was reminded of a lot of the stunts that they used to do in the old films, and so yeah, they did use a lot of techniques like cutaways and editing and stuff, but they did a lot of those actual stunts. Like Buster Keaton is probably one of the most famous ones, where he was walking through kind of a tornado thing, and the facade of the house fell on him, and he was standing perfectly in the window, so that the house just fell around him. That's something that gets brought up all the time. That was a practical effect. That was a 2-ton house facade that they built for this this stunt, and they actually dropped it on Buster Keaton. If he had missed his mark by an inch, it might have killed him.
They recreated that stunt with Jackass, I think the second film, and it did hit Johnny Knoxville. The first time they shot it, it hit him, and they had to redo it. Of course, the structure wasn't as big and heavy as I think the previous one was. But you look at the Buster Keaton stuff, and there's a lot of stunts he does. Like media has become so disconnected from almost the art of filmmaking. And I'm not saying they have to put their lives on the line, but you could watch something and be blown away by what you're seeing because you know someone had to do that thing. Now I'm watching like a CGI rendition of a car chase. One of the worst films I've ever seen. It's like The Gray or something on Netflix. Just awful. Chris Evans is in it. And they have a car chase, and the whole car chase is all CGI, and I could tell it's all CGI. And there's no anxiousness or anticipation, or there's no threat to it, because it's all just fake cars running around. I mean, lo and behold, we have the day when Ronin came out, and they had that car chase scene in Ronin in Europe.
Or the French Connection.
Or the French Connection, or whatever, where they just had to do it. And some of those old stunts would be so dangerous. It's like, I can't believe people weren't dying constantly, all of the time. And I'm not saying they need to put their lives on the line, but there's so much more impressiveness when it comes to an action scene from even 10, 20 years ago, because you know most of the time they're not doing CGI.
They're not relying on green screen and all that stuff.
Like Mad Max Fury Road is amazing. And it's not just because of the storytelling of the visual element. It's amazing because of how good the stunts were, and they were all done. Like all of those stunts were done pretty much. And it's just, it's not the same. It's not the same.
So the reason I brought up the stunt work was because I was actually looking into like the actual development of some of the stunts and stuff that they used to do in the old black and whites, and I found a list, and they're like, these are the 10 stunts that are, you know, some of the top ones that were done that we still have record of. And they mentioned in this article that one of the stunts that's probably one of the, I can't even think of a movie that has attempted to do something of this nature currently. But in the old black and whites, and this stunt, we know about it from history, but the film has been lost. Apparently, this one actor jumped from one airplane to another while in flight.
This is like a Tom Cruise sort of nonsense.
Yeah. But this was back when they were doing black and white. This was, you know, there was no way that they were doing trick film with this, because
which
just
almost
had to land it.
It blows you away more when you see it in the theater, because you're watching, you're like, oh my gosh, like someone jumped from a plane. Yeah. And you know no one could fake it, because there's no technology exists that could fake that sort of stunt. They just had to do it.
Right.
And then it looks really cool when they do it. And the only one thing I was thinking of when we were talking about this, the idea of lost media, how much media has been lost over over this last century or so, because film is fairly new, and that they didn't make as much an effort to preserve stuff. Like,
well, a lot of times they would recycle the film, so it was expensive to buy, so they would film something, and as soon as they went out and they shot it, they went back and reused the film. So a lot of that stuff we have nothing. There's nothing left of it because the film was reused.
Yeah, and that was one of the big issues with a lot of old like TV shows and radio shows and stuff. Chance jumps in with his degenerate self and says, "Sup, you crusty booger trolls." I require my toll for my bridge. Anyway, what I was going to get at is it's funny how media moves so quickly to the point where people forget some of the most consequential aspects of, like, let's say even American culture. The Shadow was it was the biggest character and show in this country for a long time. Like, it was so big that it was like most of the country would tune in and listen to The Shadow on their radios, like every week when it would come on. The Shadow was so big that they've only recently caught up with Marvel movies as to the amount of Shadow movies that they had made. The Shadow overshadowed, to excuse the pun, like almost everything. It was like precursor to Batman. It was a massive property that everybody listened to, everybody access to, and now like practically nobody knows this character existed. Where you know your great grandparents probably listened to him on the radio, and there's a huge chunk of the old Shadow radio programs that don't exist anymore. They're just gone. We don't know what they were. We have no access to it. Now, there's a lot you can find on YouTube if you just want to sit and listen to them, and they're fun to listen to. I used to listen to them riding to work all the time, where you would there are these interesting stories that reflect the values and the interests of people at that time. It's upsetting to think of all of the stuff that's lost when something like that had such consequential effect on the culture. I mean, Doc Savage was one of the biggest comic book characters at one time in this country. And many say, is a precursor like Superman. And we've lost a lot of Doc Savage stuff. Chance says, who knows what evil lurks in the heart of Rhett? It's pretty intense, Chance. It's pretty intense.
The Shadow knows.
Rhett knows. That being said, secretly, I'm the Shadow in a Batman costume. That being said, I played a bunch of Demon Souls this week. I, as a massive Souls person, I've played pretty much all the Soulsy games, but I've never gone down the Demon Souls route, so I've started to play Demon Souls, and I'm having a blast with Demon Souls. It's a game I haven't really gone down the rabbit hole with. I've watched some horrible anime. I watched some pretty good. Jason, have you seen that Dawn to Dawn on Netflix?
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
It's pretty crass, but it's really good. As someone who's
I've heard a lot of good stuff about it.
As someone who's watched a lot of anime garbage, and I mean, there's so much anime garbage I've watched. Just to reiterate, I watched the entirety of the one where the person got isekai'd into being a vending machine. That show sucks.
Oh.
And I finished it.
I can't. That surprises me that you actually stuck it out. That's one that I saw kind of the somebody had done a synopsis on it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm never gonna watch that.
It was almost like self-flagellating. Like I felt like I had to make up for a sin I committed, and I'm just watching this show trying to cleanse my soul. Dawn to Dawn is actually a lot of fun. Look, every now and then you run into something in the anime world because everything's been so rehashed so much. This actually refreshing and new and does something interesting. And Dawn to Dawn is actually a lot of fun. A huge chunk of the story is they're spending a lot of time trying to find what happened to this kid's balls. Because some ghost took them and then they disappeared and they're trying to hunt down his balls. And it's funny. It's a stupid, funny show. Jujutsu Kaisen felt fairly new, if not a little bit reiterative, but it felt fairly new and refreshing, and that was fun when it came out. But Dawn to Dawn stands out as unique and different as far as I'm concerned. As someone who's consumed a lot of garbage, it's been a lot of fun. Regardless of this, stepping away from our talking about everything that's old and being really funny, I would like to address the topic at hand for the day, because we are here. The topic of the day, the topic of the week, because of the political winds that have shifted, is DEI. That's the only thing anybody's talking about. With the big shift in DEI and policies based on Trump signing a bunch of stuff and whatnot. And once again, we are not here to talk about politics, but we do talk about popular culture, and it intersects all the stinking time. So the effect this ends up having on the culture is mind-blowing. Chance weighs in really quickly. He says, I guarantee I watched something today that's far and away worse than anything you have seen in years. Oh, well, do share. Do share, bud. I'm going to delay really.
He's trying to one up you there.
I can one up you. I watched a turd melt when somebody sprayed it on the driveway with a hose. Well, wasn't there that French film that was like days of film? It was like a couple of days, and it was just the side of a building or something, and just the shadows would move, and that's it. And it was almost this weird experience to go see it yourself and just sit in the theater and watch it. Get all emotional about it.
That art stuff is just for the most part is wasted on me. I think any of that artsy crap as far as film goes. There was a film that we used to watch all the time when I was in elementary school called The Red Balloon. It was a French film about a boy.
Oh yeah, it's a fairly famous yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've seen it.
I hated that. I hated it so much. So much. I hated that thing.
I mean, art is what it is. They experiment on stuff, and it attracts people for what it is. I hate modern art with a vitriolic passion of 1,000 suns, where if I had the capacity to, take all modern artists, put them on a cruise ship and sink it into the middle of the ocean, I might have considered it. They're just awful. Let's see. Chance says Nazis at the center of the earth. It was so bad, but I could look away. I mean, I assume you said I couldn't look away. It started Gary Busey's son. Ooh. There was a shot where old Hilter reanimated head on top of it. I think I've heard of this movie. If you're really into Nazi Squazzy weird B-movie stuff, Iron Skies one. They made a sequel to that one too. Where they lived on the other where they lived on the other side of the dark side of the moon, and then they invaded, and they're like they're the ones that are the flying saucers, and the president is basically what's her name from Alaska? It was the running mate of McCain.
So I thought this was like one of those old movies.
Oh no, it's a newer movie.
Filmed in 2012.
Yeah, newer-ish, but yeah. I've heard of this movie.
I was thinking like the schlock from like the 70s, maybe the 80s, but no, this is way newer than I thought it was.
Stay tuned, because there's going to be some bad movie conversation a little bit later, because we have a bad movie that's returning. We are getting a remake of a classic terrible film, and it's going to be amazing. But the topic at hand with the DEI shift, the zeitgeist itself is literally changing. And I know this sounds exaggerated, but I can tell you from the feeling and culture across the country that the tolerance for this sort of thing is done. Basically, they pushed to win and they lost. And no longer are people really interested in sort of maintaining this sort of thing. Chance says there was a UK exclusive 360 game based upon Iron Sky. Well, you would know, you're a 360 man. I'm curious if it sucks. There's a good chance it did. But to start out, I'm going to begin with an article from the LA Times. And maybe defend my position that things have actually shifted in a dramatic way. The LA Times article commentary, how Hollywood lost the culture war, which is a big deal that has happened. I mean, Hollywood went hard into politics. I'm going to read a bit of this and then we'll discuss some of the other stuff that goes on. The most perceptive joke to air on American television in the last 10 years goes something like this. Attorney Diane Lockhart, liberal lioness of the good fight, awakes one morning to find Hillary Clinton and not Donald Trump has won 2016. Struggling to assimilate the joyous news, Diane describes the Trump years to colleagues at her black-owned Chicago law firm as one would a bad dream. He kept calling Nazis very fine people, and he did a Senate campaign for a child molester, and he put children in cages, and anti-Semitism and racism were on the rise. One of the partners says, "Where was the Obamas during all of this?" And Diane pauses, searching her memory for a moment, and matter-of-factly delivers the indictment. They had an overall deal at Netflix. As any... It goes on an extensive, exhausting diatribe about how, probably not as honestly it should have, but how disconnected Hollywood became from the rest of the country and how they viewed themselves as existing in a world that was accurate, which was not. We've had this conversation before. There's a massive disconnect from what has existed in popular entertainment and what existed in the normal country. And that argument never got to people when we would have elections and then, let's say, left-wing people would win. And then they're like, see, this is where the country wants to go. But the problem is that no longer plays any part. Movies that went hard in this political direction are not doing well. Companies that went hard in this political direction are not doing well. Game developers are not doing well. And all of them embrace the new ideology that was pushed and championed by academics, by big money, by activism. And they were all told, this is where the zeitgeist is going. This is where the politics is going. It's all headed in this direction. Everything is moving in the direction of DEI, inclusivity, the woke politics, if you will, across everything. And they all embraced it, hook, line, and sinker, wholeheartedly. And the problem is, it didn't succeed. People got so tired of it, got so exhausted from all of this, that we ended up with what... I can't remember what the famous writer was, but there was a writer who wrote a book called The Great Backlash, that essentially his argument was the big era of conservative politics with Reagan and the Bushes and whatnot was a reaction to the 60s and the big liberal movements. And one thing everybody forgets about politics and this country is... You will never exist in a world where one side is always dominant forever. This country always swings the political spectrum like a pendulum. It goes one way and then it goes back because it swings one way and then it goes too far and we don't like it. And then it swings the other way and it goes too far and we don't like it. And there's been a resounding rejection of left-wing politics in this country. And it's not surprising that Hollywood is left standing, holding the bag and not understanding what to do anymore because they thought they were the movers of culture. They thought that they were the ones that would carry this stuff into the future, that their opinions matter, that people gave a crap about what they had to say when they gave speeches at the Oscars, and they don't. Nope. Chance weighs in and says Hollywood and the media no longer stand as gatekeepers of influence and information. Absolutely correct. Well said. And often their support is more of an albatross. What's that, Jason? Yeah.
I agree with the albatross comment. It's kind of like when Hollywood jumps on the bandwagon, you know that they're about to, they're backing a loser right there. Anyway, what I was going to say is that they forgot, as they always do, that they're in the business of entertainment and people come to them for escape, for exactly that, entertainment and escape. And we don't come to them for politics. We don't come to them for news. We don't come to them for opinions. And when they push so hard as they've done, and I can't say that I've ever seen a time in history that Hollywood has pushed this hard. I don't I remember growing up, I remember actors and whatever else coming out and saying that they back so and so, and they back such and such a cause or whatever, but it was never in the entire Hollywood apparatus. It was always one star or one.
Well, I think I could
explain of that nature.
Explain why. Social media. Before Hollywood sort of stood apart, they were sort of separate from us. They were above us. They secretly sort of lived their fancy lives, and we read tabloids and whatnot. But with social media, everybody feels that they could just put their opinions on the internet. So we have way more access to celebrity than we ever had before. So they don't stand apart. Now we're just abused with very uninformed, badly structured, illogical political opinions constantly from people in Hollywood.
Well, now we can be through social media. We are no longer forced to look for our fix, if you will, of Hollywood and entertainment and the news of the stars from tabloids or from entertainment magazines or shows or anything like that. It's actually the stars themselves that are coming out and saying, this is my opinion. And they are, instead of, in the past, there was a certain mystique about the stars. There's a certain, like you said, there was a disconnect between us and them. They were on the other side of a divide. And so we ended up idolizing them and putting them on a pedestal. They're up here, we're down here, they can do no wrong. And now instead, because of social media, we have access to their lives 24/7. We're right there with them because they're putting themselves online 24/7. How many shows are like,
they've been humanized, and now we know what their thoughts are, unfiltered, and they're very stupid people. They're just incredibly stupid people. But we are getting off topic fairly here. The general point is that there's this weird disconnect that's happened in Hollywood. I have this article from Fox News, a poorly structured article for Fox News. I'll reshape this to read a quote. Hollywood doesn't matter as much as it thinks it matters, a talent manager said. You had the biggest stars in the world support Kamala Harris. She couldn't have drawn more powerful advocates. It didn't move the needle. What does that tell you? Nope. It's unsettling because the people and things you hold in high esteem don't drive the culture. And I would emphasize, don't drive the culture anymore. And as much as I love movies, they aren't the driver anymore. They're not the driver of culture. They're not. What drives culture is social media and influencers, people on YouTube or Twitter or whatever. And they're right. Yeah. What used to drive the culture was Hollywood, and that's not true anymore. And we're seeing a zeitgeist shift, a paradigm shift in what people care about and what they care to listen to. Like, movies are on their way to dying. The movie theater is on their way to dying. I don't know how Hollywood survives in this same format it used to exist, but their future is the time is clicking. Like, the clock is going down, and I don't know how much longer they're going to last. And they've proven that they went hard in the politics and the activism, and it disconnected from the average listener, the average viewer, and they don't like it anymore. They don't want it anymore. I saw a tweet from somebody on the inside of Hollywood that said something like, believe it or not, that it felt like there was a massive sigh of relief in Hollywood, that a lot of people felt like they had to push these politics, and
they did.
Now they don't.
If they didn't, they would lose their job.
They're all running in the direction of, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. it's gross and racist and weird. And Chance weighs in. I get far more entertainment from YouTube creators in Hollywood. Not only are many more creative, but being able to curate the algorithm to my taste is something the media outlets cannot do. And that's another one of the problems is you used to be a captured audience. You sort of consumed what they gave you. Now that we live in a world of, like the consumer is almost king. You get to pick and choose what you want. You don't have to eat the slop they give you. We don't have to consume the product you throw our direction. Go ahead.
The thing is that we never had to consume the product that they gave us. And we can see that in movies that failed, that flopped, in shows that were taken off the air. I was talking to my wife about a show earlier today that the premise to me was interesting, but when I watched the first episode, I'm like, there's something wrong about the show, and I never went back. The show was canceled, I think, mid-season.
You could feel it. So when it's DEI filled, you could see it. You can feel it.
This was actually before DEI.
Well, that's the thing. You watch it, and there's like a period piece.
Yeah.
And you're like, I could tell. I could tell what you're trying to do, and I don't like it.
But you could. The thing is that while we still had to, we only had that one outlet. You know, we either movies in the theater or television for the entertainment. We only had those. We still had the ability to, you know, shift a little bit what we were getting, because, you know, for a long time, Westerns were the thing. Westerns were king, and they churned out Western after Western. Eventually, the Westerns lost their footing and went away. And we get now, every once in a while, we'll get a really good Western. Tombstone was
culture
one.
taste definitely changed.
Good.
I'm just saying, if Hollywood doesn't give it to you, you have no other option. You can either watch it or you can't.
Right. But we still had the ability to kind of influence Hollywood a little bit, in that if we weren't buying it, they would shift their ideas to try something that we might buy. But you're right. Now with social media, that pipeline has gone away for Hollywood. That pipeline is no longer there. And if we don't like something that we're given, we don't just shut off the TV or not watch the movie. We go find a different option. We look to a YouTube creator. We go to a streaming service. There's so much. It's so broadened now for the consumer that you really have to cater to the consumer more than ever in the past.
One thing I've realized when it came to gaming is, especially with a lot of the modern stuff that comes out, if you don't like the modern stuff, gaming's been around for a long time, and there's so many games. There's so many games that classic video game collectors can play video games for the rest of their lives and never buy a brand new one. There's so much to do. Like, don't have enough time to play every big game that comes out that year. If all you did was play video games, you might barely get like 80% of the big stuff that comes out that year. You don't have enough time. There's too much. We almost have a glut of entertainment. If they stop making movies now, I could watch movies for the rest of my life and still keep running into new stuff and just keep going older, or keep rewatching stuff I love. Like, I don't necessarily need more entertainment. Chance says, by the way, my wife and I just finished the first season of a show called Dark Matter. I absolutely loved it, which pretty much guaranteed that Rhett will think it's trash juice. Au contraire, Chance. Guess what? I just finished Dark Matter like 3 weeks ago, and it's great. It's really good. There's maybe one scene where I rolled my eyes where they entered that world that was the utopia with like the Obama building and whatnot. It was really stupid. But other than that, the show's actually amazing. It's an Apple TV show. I'd recommend it. It's really good. And really interesting. It takes, one thing I like about Apple, whether it's good or bad, they're willing to make shows that are interesting and try and do something new and try and do something different. There's some garbage on Apple, but there's really interesting, good stuff. I'd recommend Silo on Apple. Silo's really good. I would recommend Slow Horses. Slow Horses is great. Gary Oldman, he's really good in Slow Horses.
He's a good
and
actor.
That show's so good that it's consistent. Every year in the fall, I get a season of Slow Horses. Done. Like, they're so consistent that when you finish the season of Slow Horses, they show you a trailer for the next season of Slow Horses. That's how on point and filming that they are. Slow Horses is really good. There's other Masters of the Air on Apple is really good. I'm currently Severance season 2 is airing, and I'm currently watching the Severance season 2. Love season 1. We're still so far season 2 is good, but we're still on, open to whether or not they're going to drop the ball, but we'll see. But Dark Matter is good, Chance. I am the trendsetter. I'm the one with the good opinions. You just happen to stumble upon things that I like. You're the one that accidentally finds things that are good. That being said, we are off topic. To refocus ourselves, I have an article with some interesting numbers. Jason, according to The Gamer and the information that they've shared, apparently women and non-binary developers now make up 32% of all game developers, up from 24% in 2022, which is dramatically outsized when it comes to the actual demographic of those individuals in the nation itself. And according to DEI and diversity incentives, isn't that outsized influence? Because the percentage of those individuals is in the single digits. So wouldn't that explain that there's a huge disconnect from these activists and these people with different perspectives trying to sell games to people who aren't interested? Because believe it or not, the vast majority of gamers happen to be white men. So if you have 32% of all game developers being non-binary developers, women and non-binary developers, perhaps they're trying to develop games for people that don't exist or are not interested anymore. Mm-hmm. How shocking is that turn of events that so many of these game developers are making games that suck ass? I wonder why. Yep. Perhaps it's because you've incentivized heavily in a racist way, racial identity, sexual identity, things that shouldn't matter. You should just hire good people. And if they happen to be women or non-binary, then so be it. You did this deliberately because you were trying to change the culture. And guess what happened? This was rejected outright. No one wants to buy your games. No one wants to consume your product. It sucks. All the crap you're making sucks. We all know it sucks. Why do you think Ubisoft is having problems? Why do you think Bethesda's been having problems? Why do you think BioWare is having problems?
BioWare.
Why do you think Rocksteady is having problems? Why do you think Microsoft is having problems? Their primary brand, first-party Sony products that are some of the most expensive things ever made, like Concord, that are so bad that they had to remove it from the marketplace. That's not my fault. That's your fault. You're making a product that nobody wants to buy. This is your fault. And this explains it. This explains exactly what you're trying to do. You were emphasizing these weird racial gender categories over making a good game. And that was your biggest mistake. And we can see it. We know the numbers. We knew what you were trying to do. I don't have to buy your shitty product. I'm not required to. You know what? I could just play Sega. I don't have to buy or consume your stuff, and I know what you're deliberately doing this on purpose, and we're fed up with it. Make a good game. Don't preach to me. Stop with this nonsense.
Let me point out. I want to point out two things. First, Saber Interactive, and just leave it there. The other thing is that DEI has never been about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Never. If it was, as soon as they got their diversity, as soon as they got their equity, as soon as they got their inclusion, they would have been done. But that's not what they were ever about. Never. Now, maybe at the beginning, I should backtrack on that and say maybe at the beginning there were some well-meaning people who actually were there for diversity, equity, inclusion, but for a long time, it's never been about that. It's always been about taking away the power from those who they viewed through their lens that were in power. So basically, it was about taking down the white male and
the patriarchy,
putting putting in its place their own theocracy.
You're absolutely correct. It was always. We don't need to get into the political or origins of this philosophy, but at its core, it was always about power and trying to occupy places to usurp power. That's what the philosophy at its core is. And we don't like it anymore. But to read some of the information really quickly, males still make up 66% of game developers, which is down from 75% in 2020. Almost a quarter of developers, identifies LGBTQ+, a 3% increase. Racial diversity at studios is improving. The majority of developers are still white Caucasian. Oh, boo. How horrible that companies that exist in majority white countries still are majority
white people.
How shocking. But it's like, what are the consequences of these things? I'm telling you, it's not working out. Let's look at an example. EA has apparently said that Dragon Age Veilguard said that the sales are down 50% from what they expected. That's how bad Veilguard did. Which this information had such a wide-ranging, devastating effect on EA that their stock dropped 17%. I think at its worst, it nearly reached 20. But this is stock dropping in reaction to the bad sales numbers from Veilguard. Like, this is within a day or two. How many times have we sat on this podcast and said, this game company is going down? Look at their stock tank, Ubisoft.
Yep.
I wonder if there's a connection to the horrible content that they are producing. I wonder. Moving on, video game publishers are starting to use anti-DEI as a marketing meme. Why? Because saying DEI is almost deadly to the success of your product. That's how dangerous it is now.
Any more now, if you say DEI, people are going to immediately turn off, and they're just going to tune you out. They're going to, nope, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I mean, that's, you have to go anti in this case. You have to say, we don't do that in our game to even get people to take a look at it anymore.
How long ago did bringing up Sweet Baby Inc. mean the kiss of death for a game's possibilities?
Exactly.
And we brought it up, and we had people listening to this podcast being like, oh, well, you're exaggerating. It's like, I'm not. They are the kiss of death, and there's a reason for it. They signaled to everybody that it's more important to emphasize the activism and the politics when making this game than it is to make a good game with a good narrative that's fun. The politics, what you're telling me is the politics is more important than the game you're making. And I'm out at that point. I'm out. I don't care what you're doing. I'm out. Now, you can make a game that's political, but then just be like, I'm making a political Spider-Man game. Don't pretend like every game has to emphasize the politics. I mean, and then the censorship alone, Jason. There was a mod for the Spider-Man 2 that exists on PC that removed all of the pride and trans flags in the game. And people went after them legally for doing that. For creating a mod to remove the pride flags from Spider-Man 2.
That's amazing.
They were attacked online, but it's like the gamers were gonna do this. They were gonna go after this. They were gonna de-emphasize these. There was a mod that enraged everybody for the last what's that stupid God of War games, where they made one of the Norse gods black, a black woman.
Oh.
And people made a mod to racially change her back to a white blonde woman, and just the rage. and then like the company went after the modders for doing it and stuff. And it's like, but it's not even that. It's not even unhistorical. It's just what the person would look like. But it's like, that's how gross and weird. And then censoring people that aren't happy with it. And it's like, okay, but this is the world we live in. And it has become the kiss of death to emphasize these DEI politics in it. Chance says no interest in Veilguard in light of how crappy Inquisition was. I agree. Inquisition had its problems.
What is amazing to me?
Go ahead.
What is amazing to me is that if we took something like African folklore and we did a race swap,
well,
how many people would be up in arms over that? And yet, at the same time, if we do Norse mythology and we do a race swap there, nothing. Not a peep.
Well, one of my favorite. Well, that's how weird and disconnected people are. One of my favorite tweets I've ever seen is this lady, this redheaded lady, was standing amidst this beautiful countryside background. She took a picture and she talked about how lovely it is to walk out your back door and sip your coffee and look at the beautiful countryside. And she got a tweet response of, how about you give that land back to the indigenous people? And she says, I'm Irish and this is Ireland. Literally, she is the indigenous people. She's like, this is where I'm from. This is where the white people come from.
Oh my gosh.
As people are disconnected, but let's move on. In a shocking turn of events, WB Games boss David Haddad has resigned, who headed up Suicide Squad, one of the biggest failures in gaming in last memory. So horribly received that they canceled DLC for it, as I recall. Let's remind everybody that it was a Sweet Baby Inc. title, and it angered everybody. How about more consequences? Let's see. The entertainment industry turns to Trump as the media melts down. Hollywood pragmatism leaves. Variety outraged as the public embraces the new media. We are in the age of a new media. The political winds have shifted, and nobody likes this anymore. And we were saying it was bad at the time, and we're going to say it's bad now that's popular to say it was bad. But it's over. Everything is changing. No one's okay with what they went too far with what they were trying to do, and we got a resounding rejection. There is a new media, and it wants nothing to do with what we used to do. And Hollywood is changing. The DI has ruined entertainment and pop culture across the board. You know what? I want good stuff. I was talking to Ross the other day, and we were talking about accurate and inaccurate representation and things like media.
Right.
Where you'll watch something that's like historical British drama and like the Victorian age, and it's replete with diversity, which is confusing as all hell, because they wouldn't be there. Like it wouldn't be there.
What was that one show where they cast like some really well-known historical figure as a black woman?
Oh, Queen Victoria, I think they did. I think it was Queen Victoria as a black woman. They did The Legend of Troy, a BBC TV series where a black man played Achilles, the Greek hero. But then I was thinking, well, what regards do you find inaccurate representation when it comes to other things? And you know what's inaccurate? Westerns are inaccurate. Because believe it or not, Westerns are grossly inaccurate when it comes to racial. There were a lot of
black people in the West.
Yeah. Well, not just a lot of black people. 30% of cowboys were black, because after the Civil War, a lot of people who were former slaves fled to go find their wealth. Now, you could argue a lot of towns might not have been diverse, but the Cowboys were.
Right.
The Cowboys absolutely were, and we should.
Well,
There's a gross negligence when it comes to representation, and I'm talking accurate representation. I mean, there's representation when it comes to the American Revolution. There were, believe it or not, a lot of free black men who served with and fought with the American revolutionaries. Washington's top aide. You know that famous image where they're crossing the Delaware? If you look closely, one of the men in the boat is a black man. Huh. His back's kind of turned to you. But there's a black man in the image. When Paul Revere rode out to warn that the British are coming, one of the other guys, I think if I recall, Paul Revere went south, and the other one of the other guys they sent out went north, and he reached more people and warned more people that the British were coming, and he was a black man. Who I am disappointed that I forget his name, because unfortunately throughout history you forget some of the big important figures because people just forget. But yeah, I'll figure out what his name is at some point. But and it's like people that should have been involved. What's that, Jason?
I was just going to say, to go back to the Cowboys a little bit. One of the things about Cowboys is they moved around a lot, and that could be why people don't necessarily think of them when they think of like towns in the Old West. The towns probably had more of a homogenous look because they were all
the reason why I qualified it at the time when I said is because they probably didn't settle in a lot of these towns, that they probably traveled through, that the cowboys themselves that were driving the cattle were much more diverse, but the towns were probably still fairly white. But I'm just saying that there's a lack of representation that would be historically accurate that I am realizing should have been more representative. Oh, you know what I want? Accuracy.
Very true.
I don't want pandering. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want accuracy, but let's set that aside. Chance says a comment. Somebody did a mock-up of Robert Downey Jr.'s blackface character from Tropic Thunder as Black Panther, and it was hilarious. There have been a lot of jokes. There have been a lot of jokes when it comes to representation in the past while when this was no longer popular, where the joke is essentially, look, you can race swap my white characters as long as I can have like Ryan Gosling as Black Panther, then I'm fine. Like if it could go one way, it could go another. If I could race swap one character, I could do it with the other. And if that's not okay, then maybe this has more to do with bigotry and racism than it has to do with actual representation. Because representation has to apply equally across the board or not at all. But
exactly.
Let's set that aside and move on. There's so much more to discuss. The news dump is coming our way, and we're in the news dump.
The Distracted Gamer Podcast. Big steaming pile of news dump.
You can't go to the bathroom with your pants on. Can't go to the bathroom with your pants on. The big news that came out this week was everybody's been talking about Star Trek Section 31. So to give you an idea, Section 31 was this show that they were determined to do with Michelle Yeoh, who at the time when they signed her up was this big Oscar winner. I think she won the Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once and whatnot.
Yes, she did.
So they gave her a huge amount of money to do this new Star Trek show, but they realized there was no desire for this thing. No one wanted it to come out. So Michelle Yeoh, I think they paid her like $12 million to do this, which is absurd. Because if you watch the movie, apparently a bunch of the sets are used from things like Star Trek Beyond and whatnot, because that's how little money they wanted to throw at actually making it. But they felt like they had to because she's this famous Oscar-winning actress, and they got to do it because they paid her a lot of money. So here we are with a show that they didn't seem they intentionally wanted to finish. And they certainly are. Michelle Yeoh's amazing. She's a really good actress. Apparently she's not good in this. To give you an idea of how bad it is, everywhere, left-wing news publications, right-wing news publications are all saying this is a steaming pile of horse crap. To give you an idea, this is the second worst reviewed Star Trek thing of all time. There's only one that's worse. I don't know if you can figure out what it is, Jason.
Well, I'm looking at the article, so
So
I
you
already know
already
which one it
cheated.
is.
But the worst one of all time is Brave New World, the only Shatner directed film.
No, that's Final Frontier.
Final Frontier.
Yeah.
That's how terrible this is. It has been resoundingly laughed at. You have websites like IGN are basically like, why did we make this boring, bad show? But it exists.
Wow.
It was really going to be a series. It turned into a movie that exists on Paramount. And it's terrible. It's terrible.
So they were going to do a series, but it devolved into a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like Star Trek's doing so well, but it hasn't been. Like, Discovery was terrible.
Not recently.
Picard was terrible. No one's surprised. Oh, and other kiss of death news, Sweet Baby Inc. client, Reflector Entertainment, is forced to reorganize amidst the failure of Kim Belair's Unknown 9 Awakening hurt the studio. You remember Unknown 9 Awakening, Jason? Remember that big banger?
Nope, not at all.
Yeah, because it looked like it sucked and no one wanted to play it. Once again, a Sweet Baby Inc. product. Chance weighs in, everyone, everywhere, all at once, hate it, poetic. I saw it. I thought it was all right. I don't think it was perfect. It was creative in its weirdness. I think my favorite parts was Short Round. It had some sentimental aspects to it. I'm not as in love with the movie as everybody is, but I didn't hate it. But once again, Chance is not a opinion maker. He has poor opinions. Speaking of bad movies, believe it or not, Jason, The Toxic Avenger is being remade. And it's going to release in theaters to being unrated. And to give you an idea of why this is going to be a big deal, we have Elijah Wood is in the film. So is Kevin Bacon. So is quite a few other notable actors. I remember watching Toxic Avenger being confused about this movie when it would hit on like TV back in the day. I owned some of the toys from Toxic Avenger because of the cartoon.
The cartoon, yeah. That was my first exposure to Toxic Avenger. I didn't know it existed until the cartoon came out.
No, I've seen the
from
movies.
There, I found out there was a movie and all that other stuff. Yeah.
And to be fair, I don't know if the movies are crass or have nudity because I saw it like on cable, so it's very possible it was edited. Like
I think they do.
For decades, I didn't know that there was nudity in Die Hard because I had always watched it on like TBS or something.
Yeah, when it would come out for around Christmas.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Imagine my shock when I actually watched the DVD version. I was like, oh,
that's why it's rated R.
Yeah. I mean, violence usually embraces the rated R motif, but I had no idea.
That's true.
It was just when it was on TV, it must have just been edited every time I got access to it.
Well, it's one of those things where if you can get the story and that part has been edited out and it makes no impact, it probably shouldn't have been there to begin with. They were just putting it in there to titillate, and so
to excite guys because they're like, oh, there are boobs in it.
Yeah.
A quick question. Before we move on, Chance says no, leave Toxie alone. Leave his 80s schlocky greatness to stand on its own. They will remake everything you love and ruin it, Chance. Now, I'm not actually opposed to a remake. The other movies still exist, and nobody remembers Toxic Avenger or talks about it anymore. So it's perhaps a chance to re-expose people to bad cinema. Your movies are still fine. They're not burning the old copies. Now, could they ruin it and offensively make this movie like damage it? Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Chance says I saw the first Toxic Avenger films on USA. Up All Night with Rhonda Shear. Good times. That's when I watched them on USA.
That's Same here. Yeah.
But besides that,
I'm thinking.
Well, finish your thought really quick.
Just because of their track record, I don't think they will do a good job. Now,
Well, Trauma
I'm
makes
happy
bad
to be
movies.
proven wrong.
Trauma
I'm
makes
happy
bad
to be
movies.
proven wrong.
Well,
Yes, they do.
Name an Oscar-winning film that Trauma actually had a part in. Do you know which one it is?
Did they?
Yes, they did.
No, not at all.
Rocky.
Really?
So, believe it or not,
They were involved in Rocky?
well, believe it or not, when Rocky was filmed, they struggled to get union support to be able to film certain things.
Oh.
So they went to Trauma in order to film specifically the extremely iconic running through the streets of Philadelphia and running up the stairs. Trauma did that because Trauma wasn't union.
Wasn't union, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So Trauma were the ones that actually filmed some of the most iconic scenes in Rocky because they were like, well, we have to get a non-union shop to help us with this because we couldn't get the unions to work with us. So yes, Trauma, believe it or not, worked on Rocky.
Trauma right there shows that they could make quality entertainment, and they just
or at least they can film it. Trauma's also made just a lot of garbage, but I like the spirit of Trauma. The screw you, we're going to make rude, gross stuff, and we're going to do it independently, and we don't give a crap about you. So I always appreciate that aspect of Trauma. I don't think I've ever been into their movies, except for maybe Toxic Avenger, because it had a superhero element to it. And it was during the 80s where there was a huge emphasis on like toxic environmental, like you had Fern Gully, and there was a lot of conversation about like acid rain, and there was a lot of talk in like childhood cartoons of worried about the environment and toxic sludge and that sort of thing. So it fit in with the era. We don't need to dwell on the story too much, but I thought it was interesting. We were getting a return of some schlocky entertainment with Toxic Avengers. We're going to move on slightly.
Curious as to. Oh, it does say Lloyd and Michael at Trauma have been a blast to work with. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's their
I was just wondering
intellectual property.
I was just wondering if they had if Trauma was still around or if they had bought the rights and a different studio was doing it.
Shifting on, James got an interesting story. So believe it or not, Jason, apparently Creature Commandos is the only pure canon show so far in the new James Gunn universe. Creature Commandos, I would mention, is terrible. It sucks. Don't see Creature Commandos. So I just thought it was funny. It was like James Gunn is like, well, Creature Commandos is the only purely canon show. It's like, ugh. Really? To no one's surprise, Marvel's Armored Wars is being rewritten again. A show that I think was filmed and mostly done some years ago is now being rewritten because nobody likes Secret Wars and the culture is just rejecting Marvel and a lot of the current garbage that Hollywood and entertainment has been putting out. So no shock.
No shock. Yeah, no shock there.
Additionally, in no surprise, Dark Horse Comics has distanced themselves from Neil Gaiman. Wow. Apparently, they are no longer publishing his works.
Ouch.
Neil Gaiman, who is riddled with accusations and inappropriate storylines, because apparently Neil Gaiman likes young ladies and is kind of a pervert. Moving on. Allegedly. Don't come at me, Neil Gaiman, and my single-digit followers. And another shocking turn of events. The Rey-focused Star Wars movie is now on its fourth writer.
Wow.
Because they can't quite get it right. They got to make the perfect film.
And the target keeps shifting for them, or do they
either they keep producing a bad script, or they keep realizing the culture's shifting and what they're making is not no one's interested
It's
in.
not gonna
Well, when they
hit
announced
well.
the Rey movie, everybody was like, we already didn't like the character. What makes you think we want a movie? Why on earth
Yeah.
would you think that we are desperate for this coming Rey movie of all things?
Let's get rid of Rey and have a Chewbacca movie.
Yeah, just Chewbacca irrationally screaming at everything. Actually tearing off people's arms, which we've all been waiting for.
Oh yeah.
They allude to it, but they won't give it to us, give us the goods. And if somebody is going to crawl in here like a troll and be like, actually, Chewbacca tore off some guy's arm in Rise of Skywalker, my response will be, I never saw Rise of Skywalker, so I don't know.
Rise of Skywalker never happened.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it didn't happen because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Sega's filed a trademark for Echo the Dolphin. We might see an Echo the Dolphin return.
Okay. I don't know how I feel about that.
You may remember that major Sega brand where you played as a dolphin and fought sea creatures.
So, I remember when Echo the Dolphin first came out years ago.
I remember,
and it was a pretty big thing.
I remember the funnest part was the first level where you could jump out of the water and do flips like a dolphin.
There was a lot of talk about Echo the Dolphin when it first came out. And if I remember right, you could get a new Sega and Echo the Dolphin was the game that you got with it.
Well, Sega at the time had a much faster processor than the SNES. Yeah. When I say much faster, it's like much faster for the time. And that's why it was such a big deal when you had Sonic the Hedgehog. It's like, ooh, Mario jumping around. It's like Sonic's going like 100 miles an hour. And it's like, whoa, dude, this is so much cooler and faster. And Echo the Dolphin was part of that. Like, it looked really good and it ran really well. And the only real downside of the console was its bad audio chip, which never bothered me because it's all just boops and beeps as far as I'm concerned.
Right. But I don't know how I feel about doing another Echo the Dolphin because...
Well, you don't want a Mario 64 Echo the Dolphin? Just a 3D Echo the Dolphin?
That would be interesting. 3D Echo the Dolphin.
Just go full dolphin experience. Allow me to just beat the hell out of sharks and squids. And just jellyfish, just murder sea creatures with my irrational dolphin feelings. It's funny because people always talk about how smart dolphins are. And it's like, yeah, they are smart. And it's like, oh, those stories where dolphins will find somebody stranded in the ocean. They'll push them back to shore. And it's like, yeah, there were also stories of dolphins pushing them farther out to sea. and they're also notoriously struggle cuddlers, if you will.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Chant says, I just want a Star Wars film in which the last three were just a horrible fever dream Luke was having, and we get to pretend they never happened. What was that movie? What was that TV show where he wakes up and the whole show was a bad dream?
It was the Newhart show.
Yeah. It was Bob Newhart. Luke wakes up in his bed and he's young and cool again and no longer depressed drinking titty milk.
That might be a different one because so the Newhart show, he was an innkeeper in New England. And at the end of the show, he wakes up in bed with the wife from his previous series where he played a psychiatrist.
Yeah, both shows were extremely popular.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest shows on television.
I loved Newhart. I really liked that show when it was on. I tried to never miss an episode. I don't know how much my parents liked it. I think they just tolerated it. I don't think they really liked it. But it was like, Newhart's on. Gotta watch that.
You're an old man by comparison. I never watched Newhart, but I was aware of it through popular culture. Like, I'm aware of the show. I've read about it or heard about it. And I'm aware it was absurdly popular. It was the biggest show at the time when it was on television.
There was a whole season of what was that show? With J.R. Ewing.
No idea.
Basically, the entire season was just a dream.
Still no idea. Chance says Echo on Dreamcast was really fun and relaxing game. I heard there was an Echo on Dreamcast. I never got to play it. Maybe if I had some money, I might look it up and try and play some Echo on Dreamcast. There was it was like a PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. I want to say it's probably PlayStation 4. Sort of underwater. Oh, this is bothering me now. Let me see. Yeah.
Was it Subnautica?
No. Abzu. Abzu is actually very relaxing. And I really enjoyed it. It's not a long game. It's probably something you could play in an afternoon or maybe a couple days. But you're basically just an underwater guy swimming through beautiful scenery and playing the game. I think I maxed out the trophies on Abzu when I played it. I would recommend it if you want a relaxing, just sort of swimming around game. And it's not expensive. It's probably like $10. But I quite liked it. And as we've learned with this podcast, Chance says Dallas.
Yeah, it was Dallas. I remembered it.
As we've discovered, I am the trendsetter. I am the one with the good opinions. To shift on, let's see.
Oh, hey.
To more news. Oh, look, it's Ross.
I have arrived.
Ross has graced us with his presence. Like a degenerate drunk, he has stumbled into the room to share us with his wisdom.
What are y'all talking about?
Ross likes his drunk voice.
Well, we're moving on. We're going to be talking about something that's not Echo the Dolphin, right?
No, not Echo the Dolphin anymore. So interesting, and apparently they did some Assassin's Creed Shadows gameplay on Twitch, on a Twitch stream, and it was apparently a buggy and bland game that seemed fairly empty, which doesn't allay our fears that the thing is going to suck.
Yeah.
At this point, yeah.
Apparently the delay till, I think, March is costing an additional $20 million to try and polish quote-unquote Shadows.
Oh no.
That is not a good sign right there.
Oh my god.
I actually saw an article where someone in the development team, might have been the director, was talking about making Shadows and how they were afraid of making a game that was preaching to Japanese about their own culture. And I was like, that is the least of your worries at this point.
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that you're making a game and insisting that this character is more important than he really is in their own culture and history. I mean, Japanese are rejecting the game. So I wouldn't be super concerned about whether or not you should be afraid of preaching to the Japanese about their culture. You know who wasn't Japanese, who made an amazing game set in Japan? The company that did Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh,
they're going to do the really bad Ghost of Toho.
Well, we'll see. Probably not good.
No,
we'll
I'm developing bias unreasonably before I've even seen it. I'm not going to.
As long as you say that.
I'm not going to give it a chance, and I'm going to scream about it on the internet because there's a woman and women are gross.
Yes, absolutely, objectively true.
Objectively true. Cooties and everything.
Ugh, gross.
We should get rid of the lot of them. We'd just be having a good time if they weren't here.
Things will go really well. Yep.
So we had a Xbox. Oh my gosh, pop-ups. An Xbox reveal day recently where developer direct, and they revealed a lot of Game Pass stuff that's going to be coming to Xbox Game Pass. Apparently they're going hard still on Game Pass. They want to be a successful Game Pass year. One of the big complaints of Game Pass this last year is we didn't have very good games in Game Pass. To be fair, we had some really good ones. Well, at least big games. Some of them weren't good, like Starfield, but it was a big deal to have it on Game Pass. There was just quite a few months where you just had no nonsense games that no one cared about. But looking forward, it looks like we are going to get Team Ninja's Gaiden 4, Doom, the Dark Age, Compulsion Games South of Midnight, Sandfall Interactive's Clair Obscure, Expedition 33. And we are also getting the new remaster of Ninja Gaiden 2 called Ninja Gaiden 2 Black.
Nice.
Let's see, South of Midnight, Clair Obscure. I know there was that Obsidian game that looks like it's going to suck balls. That's also coming out to Game Pass. But there was a huge list, which this seems...
Oh, Avowed.
Avowed, yeah. This seems to be not creating the list. But they showed off a bunch of games. Some look interesting. Another Doom game. We're not complicated, people. Give us a fun game where we can murder things like demons, and we're pretty happy about it.
Demons.
We're not real angry.
We love it.
We have some Jason added news. I'll be the judge if it's worth it. Go ahead, Jason.
So apparently Taika Waititi is promising that his live-action Akira movie is going to be nothing like the 1988 anime movie.
Yeah, that's what everyone wants.
Yeah.
Well,
that wildly
the beloved
successful movie that left a huge impact on.
Introduced so many people in the West to anime. Let's make that live action, and our movie will be nothing like it.
So he made the really bad Thor movies. Movie. And I don't know if he was referencing Thor or if he was referencing the idea that they were going to make a Star Wars movie, but he famously tweeted that I'll ruin your canon in a minute.
Oh God.
Taika has become an insufferable douche who I want touching nothing. Like, he's made some good stuff. What We Do in the Shadows is really funny and good. Guess what? Jojo Rabbit's really good. But that doesn't mean that I want him to touch original content that he much like a douchey artist, he wants to make it his own, and he lacks the capacity to honor the original source material, which is so well beloved and obsessed over that even the Japanese will be offended if he ruins it.
Yeah.
What really surprises me is that anyone would let him do this right off the bat. It's like our movie's going to be nothing like
after he ruined Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah, the thing is that this is the biggest red flag a director can display going into a project.
You know what's the easiest?
Biggest red flag.
Well, he's literally just saying that red flag where they're like, we're going to adapt it to a modern audience.
Oh,
it's like, so you mean you're going to change it and make it terrible? Is what you're telling me? you're gonna make this thing awful. Good sign, Taika Waititi.
Yep. Loving it.
Moving on, Nintendo Switch games. I'm gonna have to adjust this.
We have some games that have been confirmed. There are 8 so far on the Switch 2. We're gonna get a Mario Kart. Ukulele Replay apparently is going to be on there. A game called Little Lands. Bistario. Turn-based RPG with social sim stuff. Horoscope.
Is this Ukulele a remaster or is this a sequel? Oh, it's a remake. It's a remake of Yooka-Laylee.
It's a remake.
Oh, fun game.
Yooka-Laylee are the
Synth
same people
Beast.
that did Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, them old school developers.
Yep. So we have Synth Beast, which is an action RPG. It's kind of a Pokemon type game because apparently you capture and tame beasts.
Well, just do
they're gonna get
Pokemon.
trouble.
Just do Pokemon. Nintendo owns like 15% of Pokemon. Just do Pokemon.
Yeah.
Actually, I think
Horoscope,
it's
My Time
more.
at Evershine.
I think it's more. I think Nintendo's like a third of Pokemon that they own.
Yeah, they own a huge chunk. I know that.
And then the last one apparently is Secret Forest, which is an open world MMORPG made in Unreal Engine 5.
Oh,
So
Well, you need to announce the Zelda. That's what you need to do. And a Mario.
that's the
yeah.
What? To be honest, what games do people want to see on the Switch? They want a Mario game. Mario Kart is a good enough one right there to be, well, that satisfies both the Mario and the Kart people. And then we want another Pokemon game because, you know, people on Switch always want Pokemon games. And then another Legend of Zelda. If you throw a Metroid in there too, or a
3D
Star Fox,
Metroid, people have been begging for a 3D Metroid for a while. Star Fox probably. The problem with Star Fox is Star Fox didn't do super well, but it was on the console that nobody played. The last Star Fox,
Right.
It was on the Wii U, and apparently it's really good.
No.
But no one bought the Wii U.
I wonder why they
so no
don't
one bought
remake
Star
it.
Fox.
nobody
Let's
liked
just
the Wii U,
re-release
yeah.
it or something. Well, one of the problems
Yeah.
with that Star Fox, it was heavily integrated with the unique controller that exists with it. So you
Yeah.
have to use, because the controller is like a second screen that used for aiming or something. So it was used in tandem. So it's hard to like redo, because like I own Mario, it's like Mario Deluxe or whatever, the one that was on the Wii U, and it's really fun. It's a blast. You know what's one of the problems is you don't experience all of the features that exist with the game in the Wii U, because there was an aspect where someone could use the tablet and the stylus to create platforms that people could jump on. I never get to experience that because you can't do that on the Switch.
That's kind of cool, actually.
What is cool?
The fact that you could have somebody else helping you out as you were going through, that like they could put
Oh yeah,
platforms
on the
and
Wii
stuff
U
for
version,
your
it was kind of
character.
funny because the person could tap and put little platforms. So when you would play big person games, like with 4 players jumping around, you could also have one person like drop you platforms with the stylus so they could make it farther.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
incredibly
you poor Wii U.
chaos and fun, but I still want to get a Wii U at some point. Have yet to.
Someday.
But I want to. More Jason news.
Okay, this is yet more bad news for those of us who like the original Star Wars series. Apparently, they are going to reimagine the original trilogy characters in a new Uncharted era.
What does this mean?
So this isn't going. What was that?
What does this mean?
Basically, they are doing comics
Oh, I don't care.
that are set between between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, that are going to feature Luke, Leia, and Han.
This isn't new. They've made comics about these characters for a long time, and they kind of sucked.
True, but
famously, Dark Emperor, which was one of the series that occurred where Luke falls to the dark side, and the comic kind of sucks balls. They also invented the largest starship that ever existed in Star Wars ever, which everybody always brings up as the biggest Star Wars ship ever, but it only exists in that comic and then gets destroyed in that series. It's like the Emperor class Super Star Destroyer. Like it's so big that Super Star Destroyers can land on it, sort of thing. Which makes it rival the Death Star in size. I mean, it's absurd. I remember because I've read that series where Luke fell to the dark side, and then that just is this far-reaching, affecting storyline where now when you would read the extended universe, you would have Luke reflect on the fact that he fell to the dark side at one point and how that made him feel. And it's like, yeah, but the comic sucked. You could have just ignored it.
Well,
so I'm not
basically
shocked
when
that this happens, that they do extended universe, like they do extra comics and stuff. I don't think this is going to go anywhere. Nobody buys comics anymore, and Star Wars is a damaged brand.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. And when they say something is reimagined, you almost have to tack on reimagined for a modern audience, which means that it's going to suck. It's not actually going to be the characters that you
it's just a signal it's bad.
Yeah. But basically, you know, they did the whole comics and all that stuff, but when the Rise of the Force Awakens came out, they basically said none of that is canon and they tossed it out. I think this is kind of back into we're now drifting back into canon territory again. So this new stuff will be new canon.
Oh my God. It'll be bad canon, but it'll be new canon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
for Ross's sake, I'm going to go through very quickly some of the news just so that you can what we're going to call this Ross reacts to stuff he missed segment.
Hey.
Dragon Age sales missed their mark by 50%.
I'm shocked to hear this.
EA stock drops in response by 17%. Let's see. The head of WB Games has resigned. Famous company that made the Suicide Squad. So that's shocking.
It took that long? Oh my God. I'm surprised it wasn't sooner.
Section 31 came out, and it's the second worst reviewed Star Trek show of all time.
Wait, what's the first?
Do
we know?
5, the Voyage Home.
Voyage Home.
Undiscovered Country.
Undiscovered Country. It was the only one directed by Shatner.
Yeah, that one is really bad, I will admit. Although I bet Section 31 is actually worse. But that's fair.
The developer that made Unknown 9, Sweet Baby Inc. has done so poorly that they're restructuring the company. Their name is Unknown. The game's name is Unknown 9 or Awakening Unknown 9. Sweet Baby Inc. worked on it. No shock that they are restructuring the company. They are doing a new Toxic Avenger, a remake.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, Chance seemed not excited. He thought they were going to ruin his beloved character from the 80s.
I'm going to be honest, and no offense, Chance, but the people that are still into trauma are usually the kind of people that say words like "shud" seriously, so it's going to fucking suck.
I don't have a problem with redoing it. Trauma's... At least they're going to make a show that someone cares about, because every trauma movie that's ever come out has been bad for the last 30 years. The only thing that ever
Avenger
hit the mark was
thing
Toxic Avenger, yeah.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Kevin Bacon is going to be in it, as will Elijah Wood.
The Elijah Wood makes total sense. Kevin Bacon's like... surprised, but I'm happy to hear that. They're both great actors.
Apparently, according to James Gunn, the only purely canon show right now is Creature Commandos. I thought
We'll see how long that lasts. What? I am... Because I it's well documented on this here podcast. I don't give a crap about superhero stuff, comics. Like I find it fascinating from a business sense, because Marvel, the comic side of things, completely missing the opportunity to do nothing but tie-ins with the huge movies. Like, it all fascinates me.
Sure.
And I'm so interested to see how James Gunn is going to try and pull the nose up on his own career after this shit all fails. Because it's not. I mean, like, this is such a fucking disaster. They have a show.
he will be the next JJ.
Oh, is he going to be JJ?
Yeah. If he ruins it bad.
I mean, by that point, I'm sure he'll have enough money. He can just, sip Mai Tais until the day he croaks. But like, they have a show right now that is so beloved. Like, people really are excited for that Penguin show, and they love it. And he has nothing for it.
That. Yeah. Literally, they're so behind on making a number
incredible.
2 for that Batman that they're like, but they loved the Penguin. Like,
they like that follow up, like use the momentum. But like WB, and this isn't just his fault.
He wants his own Batman.
Of course. And it's like, and part of this is WB's fault. It's not even his own fault. Like, they were such a disastrously run company that in the middle of their DCEU, as it was in the middle of failing, that they were like, yeah, whatever, here's a Batman movie, hope it makes some money for us, because we're fucking all this up right now. Like, it's just incredible. Like, oh my god.
I mean, the Batman came out at around the same time that we had a Batman in the Justice League movie, as well as an ancillary Joker in the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. It's like they had no focus, or they had no idea where anything was going.
Nope. None.
And you know what? The least you can say is at least the Joker was modestly budgeted.
Yeah.
Can't say that about the fucking second one, can you?
No, you can't.
Oh, it's all of them.
Can I tell you, the people on the subreddit for Folie à Deux are so angry that it wasn't nominated for Oscars. Did you know, by the way, that Folie à Deux has been nominated for Razzies, though?
Of course it has.
It's justifiably so.
Because it sucks.
It hasn't been nominated for an Oscar. Yeah, no kidding. And the sky's blue. Like, obviously, like, what idiots? Like, even if that movie was good, never expect a normal, regular movie to go up in the Oscars, especially not in the last few years. But that's all, like, since I was a kid, that's always been the case. It's always Ponzi movies. Yeah. There was a time, like, there's been brief periods where, like, kind of like the late 90s-ish into the mid-thousands, kind of, like, where they have regular people movies. The 50s. But, any other times in those, like, it's just going to be Oscar bait. Just these Ponzi, schmonzi, fart-sniffing movies. And that's fine. That's what... Because it's an industry show. So it's actors, producers, like, all those are all the people who are voting on it. It ain't regular folk, and that's fine. But just remember, that's what it is.
And
idiots!
If a normal movie did get an Oscar nod, it wasn't for acting or story or anything like that.
Yes.
It was for like technical stuff.
It's always below the line. Yep.
I just thought it was really funny how he phrased it as the only pure canon show. And to clarify, this was in a response where he's discussing Suicide Squad, which he calls an imperfect memory.
What?
So it's because he made a Suicide Squad movie, and I guess it's partially canon. So he's calling it like a dream or something.
Oh my god! I mean, isn't even getting to the point where like certain episodes of shows are or are not canon.
Yes, for that John Cena show.
Oh my god! You mean the other show that's popular that DC has right now? Oh my god!
Part of season 1 is not canon, but part of it is.
That's
so dumb.
That is really bad.
Look,
really
he's
stupid.
Brilliant. He knows what he's doing. We're giving him all control, even though it's already confusing out the gate. It's confusing. He must succeed with Superman. And the problem is nobody understands Superman, so nobody knows how to make a good Superman. James Gunn would not be the first person I picked for Superman because he makes quirky, weird comedies like Guardians of the Galaxy. He makes Slither or whatever. Like, he doesn't make Superman as a different ball of wax, and I don't think he understands how to make a good Superman.
He could do a Booster Gold Blue Beetle movie.
Yes, that's up his alley.
Yeah.
You know what's up his alley? Creature Commando, something weird.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I would have put J.J. Abrams on that list before James Gunn. But the problem is James Gunn's been successful in the last fucking decade, so, you know.
Gunn used to work with Troma.
That makes a lot of sense.
The head of Troma, that goofy guy that did all the toxic Avenger movies and stuff, he's in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He's one of the prisoners in the prison.
That rules.
It's funny to see him in it. And I like the idea of him bringing the guys he was a part of and stuff. It's funny to see him sort of show up.
That's pretty cool.
I just love the only pure, Suicide Squad's an imperfect memory, but the only pure canon so far is Creature Commando. So it's like, that really shitty cartoon you made is the only pure canon, is what you're telling me?
People don't really care about.
Well, I mean, it makes sense from his perspective. It's like, it's the only one that he's worked on. All the rest of it is.
And really quickly for the Raw segment, Armored Wars is being rewritten. Dark Horse.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, because everybody forgot about Armored Wars. Dark Horse Comics has cut ties with our favorite emo Neil Gaiman.
Why? Was there a particular specific reason, or?
Well, the allegations. Once again, I have skirted everything I can to talk deliberately about the allegations, but they involve Poopy.
Was it the butter, or was it the other thing?
Well, the butter's one. Having Poopy on his member and then demanding the other individual remove it.
I'm surprised this didn't go with Dark Horse Corporate. That didn't work for them.
This is not part of our culture. We're trying to encourage. Well, one of the grosser allegations is he employed a homeless 18-year-old, something like that, and then he would sleep with her.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so apparently Neil Gaiman is a massive perv. So it's no shock that Dark Horse Comics have basically cut ties.
That's really
and are
fucked
no
up
longer,
if that's true.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And they're no longer publishing. Once again, allegedly, but there are a lot of stories that sounds like he's a massive perv. The Ray movie is on its fourth writer.
When are they just going to say, you know what? We're going to
just pack it in.
Yeah, we're done.
We might be getting a new Echo the Dolphin.
Hell yeah. Game Pass, day one, I hope.
They streamed gameplay of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and apparently it did not assuage our fears that it's gonna suck. Because it looked boring and buggy and bad. It was supposed to release already. No wonder they had to push it back until March.
Jesus.
And we have some Game Pass stuff coming out. And I would like to end this, now that Chance is here, to talk about the Oscars. Something this podcast is immensely in love with, because we are famous Oscar fans, as everybody knows.
Definitely.
Just to re-clarify, that's incredibly sarcastic. We hate the Oscars. I think they're a bunch of self-entitled, pompous douchebags. And we don't care who wins, because the Oscars has no meaning. Even if a movie wins or loses, it has zero value because nobody gives a shit about the Oscars.
Yeah, thing is, like, you can find interest in the Oscars, but don't take it to heart. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, good movies are still good movies, whether or not they're recognized by them. If you're going to find interest in it, find interest in the bizarre behind-the-scenes politics.
The big winner in nominations is a movie called Emilia Perez, which has 13 total nominations. Are you aware of Emilia Perez, Ross?
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I kind of am,
Ross
a little.
does. So to give you clarification, Jason, it's a musical about a trans individual who was a cartel leader who sold drugs and killed people and is transitioning in prison.
Oh my gosh.
It's a musical, and Hollywood so loved this movie that they had nominated for 13, almost tying with Titanic's 14 Oscar nominations.
Snubbing the other big musical, Wicked, the one that actually made money.
the
Yeah,
one that
the
was actually
nominations this year for the Oscars are all just garbage films. Just stuff I've either not heard of or I know about, and it's terrible.
And you know what? I mean, to be fair, not that you want to give the Oscars much credit, but like, look at the year they had. It was a fucking shit show.
Oh, it
It
was
was
a
an
bad
absolute
year.
disaster.
It was
Horrible.
a bad year.
The most successful movie of the year, if you're going to base it on that, is a Deadpool and Wolverine movie, which, while I enjoyed, it doesn't need an Oscar.
It is not an Oscar quality film.
No, like a Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, it is not. So, what are you going to do? Like, it shouldn't be this weird movie that they picked, but, oh well.
We're seeing, let's see, Best Picture Honora. I've never heard of this. Here, I'll put this up. Honora, The Brutalist. I think that's the Adrian Brody Holocaust movie. Yeah. A Complete Unknown. No idea.
I've seen ads for the...
Dune Part 2 is not going to win. It's probably the best of this list. Amelia Perez, I will never see this film. No. Just to clarify, it has nothing to offer me. I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, Wicked. Wicked and Dune are the only really two I have any familiarity with, which should tell you how disconnected this really is. It's almost like they're trying to make a point by, we're going to nominate the trans movie because Trump won, I guess. Like they're trying to make a point. Oh, by the way, Ross, the Carla Sofia Gascon is nominated for Best Actress. This is a biological male from Amelia Perez. So we may have men win Best Actor and Best Actress.
Hell yeah.
Just
guys rock.
the field.
That's all I'm going to say.
Because it's all about the boys. You know what? I'm all for the trans movement just so that we dominate every sport and every piece of art possible.
As is our right. Definitely.
As is our right. As is our way. We are here to push women out of their own things, like their bathrooms and their locker rooms. We're all for it.
Oh no.
Yeah, all of this just sucks. There's nothing stands out. This should tell you not only how bad the year was, but how disconnected Hollywood is, because nothing on here has anybody heard or seen or care about. Yeah, it's all just garbage. No one's seen any of this. Oh, Wallace and Gromit's on Best Animated Feature.
That's good.
Inside Out 2, Flow, Memoir of a Snail, never heard of it. Yeah, Best Costume, Gladiator 2. You know what? Nosferatu wasn't recommended for practically anything. Cinematography and Best Costume. I guess product design. I would have expected Nosferatu to be close to the top. That got more attention than Amelia Perez did. But who am I to say? So yes, we're all hyped for the Oscars and care deeply who wins. They're just setting themselves up for another Oscar. This got a strong chance of nobody watching again. It's like every year we get the Oscars, and every year the Oscars are the worst viewed Oscars of all time. Just to give you an idea of how big the Oscars were, at a time when this country had close to 200 million people, the Oscars was pulling in like 100 million people. Like that's how big the Oscars were. Impressive. Like everybody watched the Oscars. I don't think anyone cares anymore.
No, and it's been a. Do you remember when they first started taking a dip? That's when they had James Franco and what's her face from Princess Diaries be the hosts, and it was a total disaster.
Oh yeah,
and the numbers went even worse than those years. Like in the subsequent, however many years, 8, 10 years since then. So it's like,
You know
who
who's hosting the
cares?
Oscars?
Like nobody cares about it.
Conan.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Conan
Interesting
O'Brien.
choice.
Yeah. Famous. He was. I mean, he was really good when he was in the Late Late Show. When he took over for the Tonight Show, he wasn't good. And then he had his own show, which got canceled, and now he has a podcast. So he's definitely very involved in the zeitgeist where his podcast exists. And no longer has a nightly show on any of the major stations. But whatever.
Listen,
Look,
you know what
Conan, though? I really liked his show, but as far as late night, he was good, and then he wasn't. And the only really good late night still would stand today is Craig Ferguson.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like all the other late night hosts I can think of off the top of my head suck.
Yeah, I mean Leno was good, Letterman was good, but they were just sort of mediocre.
Oh yeah,
offensive,
back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah. Today they're all terrible. Do you know who beats all of the late night shows?
Mm-mm.
In the same time
Red
slot?
Eye.
Greg Gutfeld. Yeah, his show.
I knew it.
Fox.
I knew that's who it was. That's hilarious.
He does better numbers than all of them. I want to say combined, but I can't say that for certain. But I know he beats all of them.
Yeah.
Because we become so political that everyone's like, well, I just want a talk show that now caters to my politics because they're running from the other politics. It's like, it'd be nice, just generic non-politics would be fun. That would be fun.
But
people are so disconnected from Hollywood.
So nice.
Yeah, Craig Ferguson was amazing. You can watch him.
He didn't bring up politics.
Well, then he got replaced by an enormous fat douche. So,
yeah.
No, James Corden.
He's
you
awful.
Piece of crap.
He also became a giant fat cat.
He did, and then shit on the like visual artist that tried to make that movie less of a disaster. Fuck you, James Corden, you piece of shit.
James Corden sucks.
You would think that would be a movie that they wouldn't be able to screw up.
It's not a good play.
Mm-hmm.
Cats is not a good play.
I'm not saying it is. But with how beloved Cats is,
it did make $1 bajillion on the stage.
Yeah. It's like, just give them what they saw on Broadway, and that's all you really have to do with Cats.
You just need a couple of the ballads to do really well. Like Memories has to be done really well.
Yeah.
And then you just have nonsensical cat names and people licking their own balls. And you've got cats.
Oh, Rum Tum Tugger.
I assume. I think the play is secretly about cats being euthanized, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, probably. Let's be honest.
Well, because they're all wishing to go to the special place or whatever they call it, to be chosen to be the one.
So they can be the Jellicle cat. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah.
I read. You'll remember this. I mean, both of you will remember this. Do you remember all the ads for like cats and stuff? Like, because they used to sell like the VHS tape of the Broadway version.
Yeah.
And I remember because you'd see ads for that at the beginning of other movies on VHS. Like, they'd be advertising it. And I think my grandma even owned and I hated it. Cats freaked me out from day one. I never understood what the hell the appeal was. And I loved, like, the actual animal cats, and I still do. Like, as a child, I loved them. Big cats, little cats, didn't matter. And I was like, I don't want to watch that. It's gross.
Well, apparently the reason why that Cats the play survived as long as it did is there are a bunch of wealthy old women in New York that kept it going because they wanted to keep going to see Cats.
Doesn't surprise me.
Oh,
I just love cats.
Yeah, more or less. I have a secret fear of going, which is why I don't go to plays and musicals very often. I have a secret fear of the cast trying to interact with me, and I don't want.
You would have hated cats.
Yeah, I would have. Literally, I start punching the cat. It's like, it's fine. It's not human. I'm not getting in trouble.
Red just gets thrown out of the theater because he keeps punching the cat that tries to sit on his lap and meow at him.
It's not a person. It's legally fine. It's not assault.
What? I didn't abuse it. It scratched me.
It was self-defense.
Cat was rabid. Had to put it down. I mean, when I get seats, it's balcony far away. When I go to see something,
Oh yeah,
like I don't want to be down there.
I think you wouldn't like the Lion King either because they like have the animals come out in the aisle.
Well, I had that. I saw Joseph at the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and they would come down the aisle, and this lady. I was on the aisle, and this lady was high kicking right next to me. And it's like, do I look at her high kicking, or do I look at the play in front of me? It was just really awkward, and they're like smiling and looking at you, and it's like,
Joseph.
Yeah. This is why I will advocate for the removal of all musicals forever and ever.
Vote red today.
Vote red. He will remove musicals and get rid of a bunch of people in Hollywood, and you will lose nothing of value.
Red Rum Tum Tugger running for office this year.
Well, I'll make a deal. I'll keep Cats to Play if I get to ruin it.
You're sitting up in the balcony with a paintball gun, just shooting the actors as they're trying to do their lines.
No, like I'll add a cat that in the middle of like very emotional scenes will start coughing up fur balls and look really ragged.
Or just start yowling.
Yeah. Just ruin it.
Introduce the concept of feline AIDS into the story. Make it Rent, but with cats.
I got a bunch of like animal, protective people showing up just to gather cats, and they're like, I wonder where he's gone. And they're just dumping bags.
Turns out cats. Cats takes place at an animal hoarder's place.
I've been chosen to die from disease as the pile falls on top of me.
I'm the Jellicle cat.
I'm the Jellicle cat. Yeah, I'll accept that as long as I get to ruin it.
Fair. I think that's a fair deal. I'd make that deal.
My new platform. Ruin things you love.
Yeah, it's a great platform.
Hey, you ruined Star Wars and Star Trek. It's my turn. I'm going to start tearing apart your stuff. I'll go look for things Taika Waititi made and just crap all over it.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be great.
Redo Jojo Rabbit. Make Hitler the hero.
Oh, my God.
And he won. It's like a Tarantino re-envisioning of history or whatever.
Yeah, that's all it is. Once upon a time in Berlin, or whatever.
Once upon a time in Western Europe.
Jojo is the one that turned in his mother.
Oh,
for undermining the state.
No, being a defeatist.
Well, and Tycho has to return as Mr. Hilter because I own it now. And he's contractually required.
Yep. He must.
Sweet. Guess what we have before we get out of here? The effort I put in this podcast is just above the rest of you plebes.
It's true. These are facts.
These are facts. This is true.
So, fight night tonight, we are facing, well, the Goatman of Maryland, I should say, is facing the Devil Monkey.
See, I'm looking for the Goatman. Goatman of Maryland. Devil Monkey. Okay.
Okay, so just to recap, the Goatman of Maryland has a human face, either a hairy humanoid or more fawn-like. Attacks cars, lives in abandoned trailer parks, kills anything living, especially couples. 6 feet tall, bright eyes. And then we have the Devil Monkey.
He's got the Jason disease, where he literally just attacks people who are hooking up.
Yep.
I'm unhappy with young people having marital relations, premarital sex in reality.
Yeah. The cautionary.
No, the other one too.
Both.
And then we have the Devil Monkey.
He doesn't like love.
Yeah, no banging.
With the Devil Monkey, it is baboon-like, 4 to 5 feet tall, but less than 7 feet. It's quick and agile. It's shaggy with kind of a canine-looking face.
That's a
kangaroo-like legs, 3-toed, razor-clawed feet, tiny pointed ears, and long, often bushy tail.
You gonna chat GPT who would win here, Jason?
I am going to chat GPT it.
Are we just?
May I see the Maryland Goatman again? Sorry.
Oh yeah. Are we just copying out by letting chat GPT choose for us? I mean, we do argue this, but
we do argue it. So we're just getting. It's like getting a second opinion here.
An expert opinion, an AI opinion.
And maybe something to bounce off
charge.
of, you know?
I mean, if you could ask like the person in charge, like Trump, what's his opinion between the Devil Monkey and the Goatman of Maryland, would you not ask? Because eventually AI will rule us. So I think I'd ask
True.
Trump. The Goatman, he's so huge and jacked. Seriously.
You know, I saw the Goatman once when I was campaigning. Incredible guy. I mean, had an amazing body, great horns.
He's the best. We've got the best Goatman. The greatest.
You know, Maryland, they have the best Goatman. That's always been said.
So, when I typed that into ChatGPT, the Maryland Goatman apparently also has something that ChatGPT found, but I didn't when I was looking it up. Apparently, he sometimes is depicted as wielding an axe.
Well, he's got weaponry.
So I didn't know about that. Yeah.
Well,
oh my god.
Devil Monkey though, research missed the weaponry of the Goatman of Maryland.
Yeah. The Devil Monkey is extremely aggressive and strong enough to tear through steel. So, in a confrontation, the Goatman's intelligence and weaponry might offer reach and tactical planning, while the Devil Monkey's natural weaponry and agility could allow for rapid close quarters attacks. Ultimately, the victor would depend on various factors, including environment, strategy, and perhaps element of chance. And that's all it gives us.
Well, the axe, I mean, I was already leaning Goatman, and the axe tips it over. I hadn't considered how razor-sharp clawed his feet are. If I think of the Devil Monkey in terms of like he's a kangaroo with a monkey head, I've seen kangaroos fight, and they get really surprised when people punch them. Like they don't know how to handle it.
That's true. They don't like it. They don't deal with it.
While it is true that they do get surprised when people punch them, they their kicks are super strong.
Right, but you just get that shock in. You get that surprise, that little knuckle duster across their face, and they don't know how to handle it.
You know how it is.
The thing is that I was coming down on the side of the Goatman of Maryland as well. That was kind of my thought who would win in this particular round of combat. They're not too far off of each other size-wise.
Well, the inconsistent size claims of 4 to 5 and less than 7 is really difficult to pin down how big the Devil Monkey is.
True. But with the Goatman of Maryland being around 6 feet tall, 5 feet tall is not super.
Sure. I'm just reminded of when I was in Brazil, and I think I remember reading the population of Sao Paulo was something like between 15 and 20 million. And I was like, how do you have an error of 5 million people? Did the guy just walk out his house and look out over the city and he's like, it's about 15 to 20?
Well, with the way that Brazil is.
Is there a height max for the devil monkey? Like he can't exist above 7 feet, which is, it clarifies it has to be less than 7 feet.
Well, I think
as soon as they get over that,
has
their liver
reported
fails.
a devil monkey taller.
Their liver fails. Their body can't sustain the weight. It collapses on itself.
Yep. Exactly.
What about a 6'11" devil monkey, but he's very obese?
Just a
cholesterol.
Just a
first.
Big fat devil monkey.
Just an incredibly overweight devil monkey.
Jabba the Hutt looking fucking devil monkey.
Diabetic devil monkey. It reminds me of those monkeys you see in like India that are smoking cigarettes.
Oh yeah.
Devil monkey smoking a cigarette. They're feeding his addiction.
That's very Maryland.
Yeah.
Smoking a cigarette and eating crab chips.
Well, there are ways to deal with the devil monkey. You surprise hit a little sucker punch to the face. You give him cigarettes and come back years later when he has lung cancer.
Yep. Good choice.
Goatman in Maryland is basically a Bestigor from Warhammer.
Yeah, especially with the axe. Good lord.
I like the man face, a humanoid face. It gives him human features, so he'd look at me and make faces, and it'll make me uncomfortable. Attacks cars. He's so belligerent, he attacks anything.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like the inevitable advance of technology. Soon it will be server centers.
And
just feels that it's leaving him behind.
If the devil monkey has a girlfriend, he's pretty screwed. He goes after couples.
It does, yeah.
Oh,
like the Zodiac
Dunzo,
killer.
Chief. You know how you do.
Famous serial killer of California. Who was it that Son of Sam was going after? Was it blondes or brunettes? Because I remember people were dyeing their hair because all the girls he was killing all had the same hair color.
Well, his dog did tell him, so.
Yeah, his dog did tell him what to do. His dog talked.
Well, I'm going to call it, unless you, because it sounds like we're mostly siding with the Goatman of Maryland here. I don't think the.
Yeah. Well, look at this Chad is the problem. Look at him.
Look at him. Look at this guy.
This probably AI image. Look at this Chad. He's so jacked. Like how many? Like he's got the boulder shoulders. Look at that.
Oh yeah, dude.
Lots of push-ups or bench pressing as a goat man. He's got a nice gym membership, I can tell you that right now.
Oh yeah, he's well, that's why he attacks cars. He's getting the, like the axles and stuff. It's his barbell,
He hears that women during times of stress can lift a car off their babies, and he's like, that's a good workout for squats.
It's a great workout. And he's like, yeah, I agree. Definitely.
Yeah, Goatman murders the cigarette smoking monkey kangaroo. I have decreed.
Rat has decreed.
Means that the Goatman will face Bigfoot in the next round.
Oh my gosh.
That
is a
but
much
our next
better
matchup.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, stat-wise, Goatman's probably going to overcome Bigfoot, but Bigfoot's got bias. Like I'm not impartial in this thing because I was a big fan of Harry and the Hendersons.
But our next matchup is going to be the Flatwoods Monster versus the Beast of Bray Road.
Since Silver lost her boy with the... What's his name? With the Dover Demon.
The Dover Demon.
Stupid Dover Demon.
She's been upset since then. She texts me about how upset
You
she
know what
is
he
that
looks like?
the Dover Demon's gone. What's that?
He looks like a sectoid from XCOM.
Yeah. Yeah.
He looks like he's getting one-shotted by my beginning XCOM crew. That's what he looks like to me.
Until they all start dying from as XCOM gets horrifically dangerous as time goes on.
Then the thin men start coming, and God forbid the big guys. I forget their name now.
You know what the canon is for XCOM?
We lose.
The first game humanity loses.
Brutal.
And the second game is you're dealing with the mass alien invasion that just horrifically wrecked Earth.
Oh.
Whereas if you win in the first game, things turn out where basically like the G-Men are able to keep aliens under wraps sort of thing. Get rid of them.
Yeah. Now they're just big snake people.
Yeah, now they're just horrifying snake people. Oh, XCOM. It's good. They made a shooter.
They did a tactical third-person shooter. I've played it. The Bureau.
No,
It's okay.
Yeah, it is a third-person shooter. It's okay. I was about to say first, but you're right. It's third.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Well, we should probably conclude this podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes.
I'm falling.
Delightful.
I'm falling in love with you, listener. I'm going to start leaving notes on your car. I'm into your eyes.
Oh.
I just thought I would develop like this creepy relationship with listener that doesn't comment or whatever. It's like, I know you're out there. I'm coming for you. I'm gonna leave letters in your locker, and then it's gonna get uncomfortable, and then you're gonna have to get a restraining order.
I'm going to secretly admire the crap out of you.
What? It's not awful as long as I'm quietly and not, not assaulting you and just watching you from a distance always.
Yeah, it's fine.
Always and forever. I'm talking to you. Faceless listener. Regardless, let's get out of here. Something to leave us with Ross before we get out of here.
Watched The Godfather 3 the other night with my girlfriend to cap off the trilogy. God, that movie sucks. It's not even the cousin banging. I mean, that's probably the worst part of it, I guess, but it'd still suck without that. So, but you know what? I'll say this. People give Sofia Coppola too much shit for that movie. She's fine. She's fine in that movie. She ain't blowing the door off the hinges, but she's fine. She does everything she needs to. And Andy Garcia acts just like James Caan does. He's great casting. And he looks just like Vito. But other than that movie sucks. Anyway.
Jason.
We told you so.
Oh.
Listen to us next time.
We are the trendsetters. We are the ones with the correct opinions.
It's true.
You need not listen anywhere else. You're like, is it good? Come right here. I'll know. Even if I haven't seen the movie, I'll know. I'll know if it's good.
Yeah, just tell us what's going on.
Anyway, let's get out of here. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Later.
Bye.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DGPodcast or on Instagram at DistractedGamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy.